Elohim is my strong fortress, and he keeps my way blameless. He makes my legs like a deer and sets me on my heights, who trains my hands for battle, so my arms can bend a bronze bow. You gave me your shield of salvation, and your answering has made me great. You broaden my steps beneath me, so my feet have not slipped. I pursue my enemies and destroy them. I will not return until they are consumed. I consume them and crush them till they cannot rise. Yes, they fall beneath my feet. A lot of talk. In fact, the time that I've had to spend online doing a little research, I can't really find anyone on any side, liberal, conservative, anything, that is saying anything other than we are headed into a war. Other than, I guess, maybe some of the political pundits. They're not really saying we're not. They're just kind of downplaying it a little bit. I would guess that most people are in agreement that we are, as a nation, as a planet, on the brink of war. Every day, major steps are being made in that direction. Today, again, another attack on military bases in Syria. I think that makes 14, maybe 15. This one and a few others were all claimed, or they openly said they did it. These were Iranian-backed militias. We've sent our entire stockpile of Iron Dome missile systems to Israel now, an entire stockpile, along with several other things. Another F-16 squadron is deployed over there. Israel, again, is making firm statements that they know that Iran was directly involved in the attack against them. And it's just more and more stuff. So I think that we are probably going to see a war, this nation against who else? You just pick your poison, because it's going to be several, I would say. Is this going to be the big one, the big world war? Very possibly so. Is this going to lead to things happening against us here in the United States, like I said this morning, whether it be sleeper cells or just the amount of illegals that's poured in? Very possibly so. But I read that scripture in Psalms, not just for the possibility of us going into a physical war, but I think that, and I could be wrong, I'm no theologian, I'm just a regular old hillbilly guy, but I am smart enough to kind of read the tea leaves, I guess you could say, and see how things are moving definitely in a direction of end times. It's been this way for a while. This isn't something new that I just realized. But I think we're headed in that direction. And so while we may see war in another country, multiple wars, we may see global world war, we could see nuclear war. I mean, I think it was just today that Russia did an intercontinental ballistic missile test. Last week, we did some type of nuclear weapons test. We didn't detonate a nuclear weapon, but we were testing systems. That's all being built and built and built. We're doing some war game training in the South Asian Sea with several of our allies over there, kind of rub it in the face of China. We could also see war here. We could see war here in kind of a Red Dawn type thing. We could see war here where there's just extremists and terrorists and whoever that just unleash their evilness, because evilness is being unleashed upon this planet. But the war that you and I need to get really prepared for is not just the physical war, but also the spiritual war. This book tells us that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and spiritual war. And so while we will most likely see, whether it's from afar or up close, physical warfare, we will also experience spiritual warfare. And so as prepared-minded people, especially prepared-minded people of faith. We have to get prepared for that. We have to be serious about it. And yes, we need to go out and stock up. We need to have our own battle plan, and I don't mean necessarily battle plan going out and standing in line and pew pew. I'm talking about battle plan up here of how we're going to protect ourselves, how we're going to endure famines, endure supply chain problems, endure the Great Reset, New World Order, all those kinds of things. We have to have a pretty solid plan on that, but we also need to prepare ourselves spiritually. It's a completely, for lack of better words, a holistic approach to it. And not everyone really thinks about it that way. Not everyone puts two and two together. It really is a holistic thing. Some of you don't agree with me. Some of you aren't interested in what this says. That's on you. I believe someday you'll have to answer for that, and I'm not here to preach at you. But for the rest of you, you know what I'm saying is true. And we are watching not just the physical warfare stuff happen, not just the big brother beast system being built, but we're also have been watching for years now the love in men's hearts grow cold, and the evilness spread into our society, and the degradation of morality, the mockery of the Father and his righteousness. We're watching that happen in conjunction with all these other things, right? And then, of course, there are many just end-time prophecies being fulfilled, like red heifers and building the temple and, river Euphrates drying up, all kinds of things that we can point to. We have to be ready for this. It's not just about stacking your bullets and your silver and your beans. I mean, that's part of it. Joseph did that. Noah did that, and many others did those things. It's not just about making sure that the people around you, that the remnant that you hang out with, that you train with, and that you have planned to survive with are solid. That's part of it too. But it's also on a personal, inside here level. You need to make sure that is solid too. Because it's not just the physical warfare type of things or physical, tangible, tragic things that we will have to endure. It's not just the plagues, so to speak, that we will have to endure. It's also the spiritual stuff, because this evilness out there, it's not just trying to disrupt the system. It's not just trying to bring about some kind of new world order. It's specifically targeting folks like you and I. And that's what it says here, right? That if we were in the world, if we were of the world, they would leave us alone. But because we're not of the world, because we know who Yeshua is, because we know who the Father is, because we know what we're supposed to do, and we believe in that, and we have it in our heart, then now we are the enemy. They hated him first, and now they hate us because we are not of them. And so we have to make sure that we are rock solid. I mean, we are commanded to be holy. And Yeshua repeated that by commanding us to be perfect. And I know that we all sit around saying, how in the world can such a sinful, imperfect being like myself be holy and perfect? Well, we can't, but we can. We can through him. We can through our connection, through that spiritual connection that we have, that belief and that believing and having that faith that he will be there for us and that he will help us. And then, of course, we have to do our part by working really hard to try to purge that sin out, that dying to the cross daily, that circumcising our hearts on a regular basis. I know this is a pretty preachy video for a lot of you, and that's okay. It's still my channel. But you know what I'm saying is true. You know what I'm saying is true. I've had so many people over the last few years, when I make these videos, email me later on. And they say, yeah, I'm not one of them kind of Christian-y, faith kind of believer, God kind of persons. But what you said kind of hit something in me, kind of a tender spot, sensitive. Well, that's the point, folks. And it's also the point to waking up the lions, which I've said for years now. That's the real focus of what I'm trying to do here, to wake up the lions. It's time to wake up. It's time to come out of your slumber. It's time to get physically prepared. It's time to activate yourself physically. Activate your plans. Get in a place of not just preparedness, but readiness. Preparing is something that you're doing leading up to something happening. And then once that thing happens, now you're in a state of readiness. And that's where we need to be right now. We should be actively every day in a state of readiness. If you're part of a tribe or a community, you need to be communicating with them on a very regular basis. Because at this point moving forward, I suspect, although I could be wrong, but I suspect things are going to move pretty fast. And there may just be one day coming up, whoever knows soon, that it just goes from being somewhat still normal to very chaotic. All it takes is one terrorist attack. All it takes is a plane coming down. Those of you that are old enough that remembers 9/11, remember waking up that morning? Everything was great, and then all of a sudden it wasn't. If that kind of stuff happens right now, especially if it was an attack on any kind of infrastructure, it could spread very rapidly and get out of control. So we have to be ready in that way. But we also have to be ready spiritually. Because regardless of whether it's a sensational attack that causes chaos or it's just an incremental cooking us in the frying pan kind of thing, we know that at some point we are going to see more and more spiritual attacks against us. It's going to be harder on us. It's going to be harder on us to stay on that narrow path. The world is going to come against us. You may lose your job, your home, your family, all kinds of things, health. There's all kinds of things that can happen to us because we are should be in a state of readiness, because war is around us, not just physical war, not just psychological war. Those are happening, but also spiritual war. And we need to be praying so that he gives us the strength to endure the battle ahead, that he's readying us just like he did David, that he's getting us ready, not just spiritually, but physically and mentally. We need to be praying for that and training for that. We should be training spiritually just like you train mentally and physically. If you're out there shooting the pew-pews and doing all the kind of tactical stuff, then you should be doing that same level of work right here and on your knees. Because we are living in those days right now. I can't guarantee you, I'm not saying with absolute certainty, but it is my belief that we are living in those days. 6 months from now, the world could go back to normal. And we'll look back and say, well, guess we got that one wrong. But I think we're so far into this now that we all, or at least most of us, know that that's not going to happen. So continue your training, of course. Continue your prepping up, of course. But also put a lot of focus in this kind of training. Folks, it's time to get your houses in order and prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.